Tech Revision with Mrs. Swanee Pooh. Hi Year 11, this is just a quick video to go through these two different types of perspective drawings. The first one being 1 point perspective, which is this one here, and this one has some benefits, some negatives, but mostly this one is used for things like interior design, and also quite often used for architecture. Because the reason is, it makes things look quite big. It makes products look like they are disappearing into the background. So it tends to make things look quite large. So rather than being like a normal size product, it might make your product look absolutely humongous. So it can make things look a little bit unrealistic, but very, very effective for large kind of street scenes or architecture drawings. And I'm going to take you through each of these, how to actually do them in the second part of this video. 2 point perspective, which is better for drawing in product design, but still does make things look like they are disappearing off into the distance. This tends to be the one that I do when I'm bored in a meeting at school, and I'll be doodling away in my planner, and I tend to draw sort of like skyscrapers and things in my planner. Doing a really bad job of that, but you get the idea. And the good thing about this is it looks a little bit more realistic, but again, it's still quite suited to architecture and interior design. Isometric tends to be the one that we use for product design, but 2 point perspective can look really, really effective. So on the next part of this video, I'm going to go into CorelDRAW, and I'm going to show you how to quickly draw these, how to turn them into a product. This is potentially something that could come up in your future exams, but also a useful thing to put in your NEA if you think it would be good for your kind of design pages. So I hope the next bit's useful. Okay, so the first thing I am going to show you is how to draw in 1 point perspective. So this is one of the first perspective kind of techniques that you need to know. So 1 point perspective, what you need to start with first is a point. So I am going to draw a point, and when I draw my shape, all of the angles or all of the lines of my drawing are going to go back to this point. So this is quite a simple drawing technique. The problem with it is it tends to make objects look quite big because it makes it look like they are disappearing off into the background. So it's quite often used for things like architecture and interior design. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to draw my shape, actually, because I'm just going to do a really simple cube. I'll just draw that flat on. Now notice that it's completely 2D. Whatever I draw in 1 point perspective, you start with it completely 2D. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take all of these points, the edges of the cube, back to my vanishing point. You can see they're not perfect on mine because my point's quite big, just to show you, but they should be able to go completely back to your vanishing point. Now all I need to do to make this into a cube is put on some parallel lines, and there you go, you've got your 1 point perspective cube. If I then wanted to turn that into something, for example a table, all I would need to do is, again, I would just make sure that any lines I'm drawing, apart from those ones on the front, which are going to be completely straight, are going back to that vanishing point. So I'm going to do this quite quickly just to show you, but you can kind of get the idea of how this works. I'm just going to kind of guess with this leg here, it's kind of that angle. Bring that down, and apart from the back leg, which I need to draw in, this would have a straight line there, and that would go down to there. That's terrible, but you get the plan, you get the idea. Take that one back up to there, and you can see how I'm very, very quickly kind of building up a 1 point perspective shape, apart from the one leg here at the back, which would need to go on a bit like this. So you can see that very quickly, as long as you've got your box to start off with, I'm just having trouble with my final line there, as long as you've got your box to start off with, your kind of cube, you can very easily make a 1-point perspective drawing. Okay, hope that makes sense. The second one I'm going to show you, just going to delete that, is how to draw in 2-point perspective. So first thing I'm going to do is draw myself a horizon line, and I'm going to put 2 points because it's 2-point perspective. I'm going to put 2 points, one here and one here. I'll just fill those in black so you get the idea and you can see those clearly. So I've got my 2 points and I've got my horizon line. This time to draw a cube, rather than draw it flat like this, that wouldn't work, you need to start with the edge of the cube. So I'm going to draw, imagine that the edge of the cube is kind of facing me, and I start with that. Then what I do is I take the top line back to my point, the bottom line back to my point, and then I do the same on the other side. Just repeat this process. And this is where it can get a little bit confusing. Quite often I see students do this kind of thing, where they put these lines on at a bit of an angle. You need to make sure that the lines that you put on here are completely parallel to that first line you've drawn. And sometimes I see students do kind of like this kind of thing on the top. The lines on the top to finish the cube off must also go back to the vanishing point. So there we go. That is our 2-point perspective cuboid. Now to turn this one into a table, again I'm making sure that all of the lines that I'm drawing, unless they're vertical, go back to the vanishing point. So I'm just putting the legs on. And 2-point perspective is a more realistic way of drawing for product design. It doesn't make things look quite so big as 1-point perspective. So it's quite a good technique to use, and you can use it in your NEAs if you quite enjoy drawing in this method. So I'm just going to trim off those little bits there, but you can see now, apart from that one leg that I'm ignoring slightly, which would be behind there, you can see I've got a 2-point perspective table with all of the lines going back to the vanishing point, unless they are the vertical lines on the object, and you can see that those are all parallel. Okay, hope that was useful.